Good evening and welcome. You're watching Fineprint. I'm Bhairavi Singh. First up, the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi today announced a 450 million line of credit for Sri Lanka and $50 million for fighting terror. This after he held extensive talks with the Sri Lankan President. The newly elected Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is on a 3-day visit to India, his first foreign trip after taking charge in the island nation. Now, the two leaders held bilateral talks this afternoon and discussed key issues like terror, infrastructure and strategic cooperation. Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa assured India peace in the Indian Ocean region, while Prime Minister Modi highlighted India's neighbourhood-first policy. Importantly, Prime Minister Modi also urged the Lankan President to take forward the reconciliation process and ensure ethnic peace, a clear indication that India wants the Tamil minorities in Sri Lanka to be safe. Both the leaders also discussed the issue of the Indian fishermen, and Sri Lanka assured India that it will take steps to release Indian boats in its custody as well.
We discussed in length the fishermen's issue and will take steps to release the boats belong to India.
Earlier today, the Sri Lankan President visited Rajghat to pay his tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. He also was accorded the ceremonial welcome at the Rashtrapati Bhavan and was welcomed by the President Ramnath Kovind and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Those are visuals there earlier from today of that ceremonial welcome for the President of Sri Lanka, Gotabaya Rajapaksa. He also met the Foreign Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and the NSA Ajit Doval earlier today. Now, Rajapaksa stormed to victory in Sri Lanka's presidential elections this month, defeating his rival Premadasa by 17 lakh votes. India is cautiously optimistic about the new government in Lanka that sits in the vital waterways of the Indian Ocean region. Remember, the bilateral ties were strained during the 10-year regime of Gotabaya Rajapaksa's older brother Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is now the Prime Minister in the current regime. Mr. Rajapaksa's visit to India is being viewed as a significant step by him to thaw the relationship between the two countries. And Wion's principal diplomatic correspondent, Siddhant Sibal, is live with us for the latest on this. And Siddhant, what are, the key outcomes of the Prime Minister's meeting with Rajapaksa this afternoon?
Well, there were many key outcomes of the meeting between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa. The meeting lasted for 1.5 hours at the Hyderabad House, and the key announcement which New Delhi made were $400 million for infrastructure development and economic assistance of Sri Lanka and $50 million for combating terrorism. This is important given the fact that Sri Lanka suffered from deadly Easter terror attacks in April, and we saw the Indian Prime Minister also visiting Sri Lanka in his first foreign visit in his second term, the two-nation visit. It was called as a solidarity visit, but also remember the Indian Prime Minister talked about the Tamil minorities, talked about the need to forward the national reconciliation process, and also said that the 13th Amendment in the Sri Lankan Constitution should go forward. This is a key messaging being done by New Delhi. We also know that Sri Lankan President made an important announcement when it comes to returning back the Indian boats in Sri Lankan custody. This has been a contentious issue raised especially by the MPs from the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu. So that is something that is considered a positive step by the new Sri Lankan government, which shows the intent of the new leadership in Sri Lanka, which is led by the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Well, absolutely, Siddhant. Thanks very much indeed for joining us with the latest there. So key highlights, many of those after that meeting between the two leaders and that joint statement that came out later in which the Prime Minister clearly said that there will be aid coming the way of Sri Lanka, both, of course, when it comes to infrastructure and terror combating as well. So many key highlights of that. And joining us now live to talk a little bit more about the visit of the Sri Lankan President is Brahmachalani, Professor of Strategic Studies at the Centre of Policy Research. Brahmachalani, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this evening. Now, so what's clear is that this visit has not just been symbolic, but one that certainly had some major highlights, and India has offered money, aid, and of course asked for assurances. Do you think this is likely to change the tone of the relationship between India and the Rajapakses?
Very likely it will change the relationship in terms of deepening cooperation on both security matters as well as deepening economic engagement between India and Sri Lanka. It's an attempt to make a fresh start because when Gotabaya Rajapaksa came to office, there was apprehension in New Delhi that his government would tilt more toward China, given the fact that China has been an important backer of the Rajapaksa family. But Gotabaya, by coming to New Delhi first, he chose New Delhi for his maiden overseas visit. Thereby, he sent a very, very reassuring message to New Delhi. And New Delhi, in turn, has offered a large financial aid package of $450 million for Sri Lanka, including a $50 million assistance for fighting counterterrorism, given the fact that Sri Lanka has been racked by major Islamist bombings. So I think both sides have made an effort to make a fresh start. And hopefully this visit of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa will help to strengthen bilateral cooperation.
Right. And of course, it does seem, Brahmachalani, that Gotabaya Rajapaksa seems to be more of a realist when it comes to foreign policy. But the Rajapaksas are known for their proximity to China. Does Rajapaksa, however, understand India's red lines on neighborhood neutrality, given the fact that Gotabaya has said that it was a mistake for the previous government to have handed over the Hambantota port to China for a 99-year lease? So it seems that he is more realistic when it comes to expectations.
One hopes so,
yeah.
But I think one has to look at his statement since he took office. For example, he has said that he wishes to maintain equidistance between the various powers, including China and India. Now, Sri Lanka is not located equidistant from China and India. It is symbiotically tied to India. So when he uses the phrase equidistance, this is music for China's ears, because when you want to have an equidistant relationship with China and India, that in effect suggests that you want to get away from the symbiotic relationship with India. So that wasn't a very reassuring statement for India. Yet, the fact that he chose India for his maiden overseas visit was certainly reassuring for New Delhi. And also he has taken pains in recent days to say that he understands India's security concerns, that he will not do anything that would undermine or challenge India's security interests in the Indian Ocean region, including in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So I think he has been more reassuring in recent days than he was at the beginning of his term as the president.
Yes, and of course India has made also enough efforts with Jaishankar, of course, going to Sri Lanka as well, and but nonetheless the fact remains that Mahinda Rajapaksa, of course, had blamed his downfall on India. Now, many believe, Brahmachalani, that Rajapaksa, of course, is responsible for the genocide of Tamils in Sri Lanka. Do you think that today, with the Prime Minister's statement on the reconciliation aspects, enough of the messaging was done as far as the Tamil cause was concerned for India and its diaspora?
The Tamil issue is very important in the Sri Lanka-India equation.
Yeah.
Because the Tamil minority is a sizable minority in Sri Lanka. It feels alienated, discriminated against, and many Tamil youths have still not been accounted for since the civil war ended. We don't know how many Tamil youths have died. Some have died in police custody, in military custody, but there is no full accountability of how many Tamil youths were detained, how many still remain in custody. But more importantly, there is deep alienation among the Tamil minority in Sri Lanka. So Prime Minister Modi has done his part.
Yes.
He emphasized to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa the importance for the new government in Colombo to promote reconciliation with the Tamil minority. But I think we'll have to wait and see what actions President Rajapaksa takes to reassure the Tamil minority. Because the Tamil minority is scared of this new government. And President Rajapaksa has to reach out to the Tamil minority and reassure them.
Okay, fair enough. Ramachalani, thanks very much indeed for joining us and sharing your perspective on what this visit really means for both sides and for what's going forward. As you said, it will be important to see what course this new relationship will take. Certainly, some right moves have been made by both sides.